The issue of homelessness in the United States is seriously a tough nut to crack, especially in big urban areas. It's not some new problem. It's been around forever and just keeps getting worse. According to stats from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in 2023, more than 580,000 people didn't have a place to crash in just one single night. Hearing that number totally blows your mind. And the reasons? Not hard to guess. The economy took a hit from COVID-19, affordable housing is as rare as gold, the population's growing fast, and rent prices just keep climbing without a break. Basically, it's a perfect storm making this mess even more chaotic. Number 1. New York City. When it comes to homelessness in the United States, you can't skip New York. The city everyone thinks is all glitz and wealth. But the reality? By 2024, around 80,000 people don't have a home here. That number's enough to make your head spin. People are packed in tight, yet there's still a ton of folks sleeping on the streets, under bridges, or in subway stations. So, how to get this bad? First off, cheap housing is like finding a needle in a haystack. Renting a tiny apartment in New York? You'd better have a few $1,000s a month or forget it. How's someone with a low income supposed to manage that? Second, mental health issues and addiction play a huge role. Tons of people are dealing with stress, depression, or getting hooked on drugs and booze, and they end up losing the ability to take care of themselves. And let's not forget COVID-19. That pandemic wrecked the job market, leaving regular working folks jobless, unable to pay rent, and out on the streets in no time. The New York government isn't just sitting around though, they've been trying to expand the shelter system. You know, places where homeless folks can crash for the night. They've also got long-term housing programs that sound pretty cool on paper, but in reality, the demand's way too high, there aren't enough spots and the cash isn't there to keep up. It's like throwing a pinch of salt into the ocean. People are still lining up forever just to get a temporary bed, and sometimes they don't even get that. So, the problem drags on, and there's no clear way out yet. Number 2, Los Angeles. Heading west to Los Angeles, things aren't much better. By 2024, there are nearly 70,000 homeless people here, a number that'll make anyone do a double take. Walk down the streets in downtown LA and you'll see tents everywhere, people sprawled out on the sidewalks. It's heartbreaking to look at. What's causing it? For starters, rent here is sky high. Like, you'd need a fortune just to live decently. Regular folks doing manual jobs or earning low wages? No way they can keep up. Then there's the drug problem. It's insane. Methamphetamine, opioids, you name it, they're all over the place and they've ruined countless lives, taking away families, jobs, and homes. Plus, the gap between rich and poor is glaring in LA. On one side, you've got fancy villas. On the other, homeless people huddled in corners. The LA government's trying to figure it out. They've got this thing called Proposition HHH, pumping money into building homes for the homeless. Sounds great, right? But pulling it off is a struggle. The funds don't just magically appear, and the locals? They're not happy about it. A lot of people don't want shelters or low-cost housing popping up near them. They're worried about property values or safety. So the project's moving at a snail's pace, and the homeless are still suffering on the streets. This mess is gonna take a while to sort out. Number 3, Seattle. Up north a bit in Seattle, the homeless count drops to around 13,000, way less than the others, but it's still a big headache. This city's known for tech giants like Amazon and Microsoft with a booming economy. So it's kinda wild that there are still people without a place to live, right? But when you think about it, it makes sense. The economy's hot, rich folks are flocking in, and house prices are shooting up like crazy. Regular workers wanting to rent here have to grit their teeth and pay double or triple what they would elsewhere. Can't swing it? Out on the streets you go. Then there's Seattle's weather. Freezing in winter, rainy all year round. How are homeless people supposed to survive that? And don't forget mental health and addiction issues. They're huge here. A lot of folks don't get the help they need and just spiral deeper into trouble. Seattle's government has a pretty neat approach called Housing First. Basically, get homeless people a place to stay first, then deal with stuff like health or jobs later. Sounds smart, but it's tough to pull off. Property prices keep soaring, there's no land to build on, and housing projects keep getting delayed. So even with a solid idea, homeless folks in Seattle are still stuck waiting forever, wondering when they'll finally get a roof over their heads. Number 4, San Diego. Down in Southern California, San Diego's not doing much better. By 2024, about 10,000 people are homeless here. Not as many as New York or LA, but still worrying. San Diego's got nice weather, sunny all year, so it's hard to believe people are still sleeping on the streets. The reasons are pretty familiar. Living costs are high, rent's expensive, and not everyone can keep up. One big thing here is the veterans. Folks who served in the military came back with PTSD or no job and can't afford to get by. Then there's mental health and addiction again, like a vicious cycle pushing people to the edge of society. The local government's trying hard. They're beefing up shelters and even have special programs for veterans, helping them find homes or get therapy. But here's the catch. The budget's tight, and affordable housing just isn't enough to go around. They make a little progress but then run into resource shortages, so things move super slow. Homeless people are still stuck wandering out there. Number 5. San Jose. Last up on this list is San Jose, smack in the middle of Silicon Valley, the cradle of American tech. Here, the homeless population is smaller than in those other cities, around 7,000 people in 2024. But don't think just because it's fewer it's not a big deal. In a place as rich and modern as San Jose, seeing people sleeping on the streets feels seriously off. The main reason? The tech industry's booming way too hard. Engineers and programmers are flocking here for jobs, driving house prices through the roof. A regular apartment now costs millions, and renting's easily $1,000 a month. How's an average worker supposed to afford that? Plus, city planning here doesn't leave much room for affordable housing. Land's crazy expensive, and everyone wants to hold on to it for big projects. On top of that, mental health services in San Jose can't keep up with everyone who needs help, so a lot of people just end up stuck with no way out. The local government isn't sitting on their hands though. They're putting money into shelters and trying to set up some supported housing areas for the homeless. But what can you do when construction costs are sky high and you're tangled up in all sorts of laws and red tape? The locals aren't too thrilled either, worried that cheap housing will drag down their neighborhoods. So, homelessness in San Jose is still this unsolved puzzle, even though it's one of the richest spots in the US. Number 6. Phoenix, Arizona. Over in Phoenix, Arizona, you've got to say it straight up, this place holds a sad record. The fastest growing homeless population in the country. Hearing that just makes you feel bad, because this city isn't exactly an easy place to live without a proper home. Summers here are scorching, with temperatures hitting 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, or 104 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. If homeless folks don't have somewhere to hide out, they're at risk of heat stroke. Or worse, dying out there. So why's Phoenix in this mess? Part of it's the population growing too fast. People are rushing in to live and work here, but affordable housing can't keep up. Everyone wants a decent place, but prices keep climbing and poor folks can't squeeze in. Then there's the social services. They're pretty weak, nowhere near enough to help all the people who need it. Homeless folks here aren't just missing homes. They're missing the support to climb out of their situation. This hits the community hard. Phoenix's healthcare system is stretched thin, rushing to save people from heat stroke or other illnesses tied to homelessness. Cops and law enforcement are worn out too, dealing with everything from theft to disturbances. The government knows the heat's a killer, and the population boom's a strain, but they're short on resources, so it's all a tangled mess. Without some serious action, homeless people in Phoenix are in for a long, rough ride. Number 7. San Francisco. Now over to San Francisco, the city famous for the Golden Gate Bridge and its artsy vibe. It's also one of the places with the highest homelessness rates in the United States. Stroll around downtown and you'll see people sprawled on sidewalks, tents popping up everywhere. It's hard to believe this is one of the richest cities around. The reasons are obvious. Housing prices here are downright ridiculous. Renting even a tiny apartment costs a fortune, and low-income folks don't stand a chance. Then there's mental health and addiction. Tons of homeless people here are battling depression, disorders, or drug problems, and they can't fend for themselves anymore. Add in urbanization or gentrification, old neighborhoods get turned into fancy spots, rent shoots up to the clouds, and poor people get shoved out onto the streets. The impact? No question about it. Tourism, a big deal for San Francisco, takes a hit when visitors see homeless folks everywhere and lose their warm fuzzies. Security's tense too. Some homeless people, desperate and starving, turn to desperate measures. The city's pretty image gets a little tarnished. The government's trying, opening temp shelters, offering health support. But the problem's massive. Money's short, and locals push back against low-cost housing near them. So, San Francisco's stuck spinning its wheels in this endless loop. Number 8. Boston. Up in the Northeast, we've got Boston, a city famous for its history and top-notch universities. Homelessness is creeping up here too, especially among families. That's right, not just single folks, but whole families with kids are ending up without a home. Hearing that just tugs at your heart. So, what's going on? First off, rent and living costs in Boston are through the roof. You need a decent income to survive here or you're toast. The shelter system's stretched thin, families line up forever and still can't find a spot to crash for the night. Then there's income inequality. The rich keep getting richer, the poor keep sinking, and the gap just widens. This digs deep into the community. Boston's healthcare system is running at full blast to care for homeless folks, everything from winter illnesses to mental health struggles. Education's hurting too. Kids in homeless families aren't getting a proper shot at school and their futures look dim. Social services are swamped. Workers can't keep up with the demand. The government's adding more temp shelters and tossing out some aid, but the need's too big, and resources can't match it. Homeless people in Boston, especially those families, are probably stuck like this for a while unless something big changes. Number 9. Las Vegas. Finally, we've got Las Vegas, the dazzling city of lights that everyone thinks is an entertainment paradise. But behind all the casino glitz, there's a pretty grim reality. Here, tons of homeless people are living in tunnels underground or setting up shaky tents out in the desert. Seeing it just breaks your heart. The reasons aren't tough to figure out. Las Vegas's economy leans hard on tourism, and that's a shaky business. Whenever there's a financial crisis or something like COVID-19 hits, people lose jobs left and right, can't pay rent, and end up on the streets. House prices are soaring, affordable options are scarce. How's a regular worker supposed to hang on? Plus, mental health support is lacking big time. A lot of folks fall into addiction or depression with no one to pull them out, and they just keep sliding downhill. The impact's obvious. Security in Las Vegas takes a hit with so many homeless folks around. Sometimes you get disturbances or theft cropping up. Tourism, the city's lifeline, suffers too. Visitors come to have fun, but seeing people in tunnels or tents kills the vibe. Public health's stretched thin as well. Homeless people don't get proper care, so diseases spread, and serious health issues pile up. The government tries with temporary shelters and some aid here and there, but the budget's tight and their plans aren't big enough to fix it for good. So Las Vegas shines bright up top, but it's a dark story underneath, with homeless folks struggling day after day. Overall, homelessness in the United States is getting worse, especially in the big cities. From New York and Los Angeles to San Francisco and Las Vegas, everywhere you look, there are people with no homes, sleeping on streets or living in tents. This didn't just happen out of nowhere, it's a pileup of reasons: housing prices shooting up, the rich-poor gap growing wider, and mental health issues and addiction dragging tons of people into despair. It's tough to see, especially since it's 2025 now, and the number of homeless folks just keeps climbing instead of dropping. Local governments aren't sitting idle though, they're trying all sorts of things, opening shelters, pumping cash into affordable housing, coming up with support programs that sound awesome. But the reality? Results are pretty meh. There's not enough money, land's hard to come by, and a lot of residents push back. They don't want homeless housing near their neighborhoods. So everything's stuck in neutral, and the people suffering are still suffering. To really tackle this crisis, half measures won't cut it anymore. We need a big, bold plan, something that pulls all the resources together, tackling housing, jobs, and mental health head-on. If things stay like this, homeless people in the United States are going to be stuck wandering for a long time. Honestly, for a powerhouse country like America to have hundreds of thousands without a place to stay, it's something worth rethinking, right everyone? Thanks so much for watching the video. Don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to support me. See you in the next one.